Alright, hello Freedom Talks, I'm Alli. There's a long tree on here. I'm sure a lot will change too. Alright, I'm going to start with a couple scriptures that I found that I wanted to share. And Psalms 22:22, it says, I will praise you to all my brothers and sisters. I will stand up before the congregation and testify of all the wonderful things that you have done for me. And Psalm 66:16 says, come here, all you who fear God, and I will tell you what he has done for my soul. I get a little bit nervous too, and I do cry. So you can ask Suzanne. Okay. All right, so a testimony to me, it reflects an intimate compulsion within believers, like most of us, to share our testimonies as an overflow of our encounter with the Lord. Our testimonies are not mere stories, but living realities woven into fabrics of our lives. Our testimonies carry a weight of authenticity that demands to be shared, compelling us to speak of the goodness, love, and the power of God that we have encountered and been transformed by. Ladies, your testimony is the story of the encounter with God and what role that He has played in our lives. And what God is doing right now in y'all's lives will be the testimony that will bring someone else through. And Mitch Bell, have y'all?
Yeah.
Okay. He once said to us girls, and I was in here 8 years ago, and I've been clean for 8 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, he said that we were sold out to Satan and drugs, but now that we are selling out to God. And I want all y'all to know that your past does not define you, your mistakes do not define you, a broken marriage, losing your children, past trauma, shattered dreams, or any of that does not define you. God defines you today, so hang on to that today. And in Revelation 12:11 it says, and they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even to death. And I found in my Bible, this is a Bible that I had when I was at 317, it's pretty much falling apart, but I had my old testimony in here, and I was just going to kind of let the Lord let me speak tonight to you guys. But I'm going to kind of bounce off of it, but there's a lot that has changed. This is my mom and my daughter, by the way.
Hello.
Hi. So as y'all see, my name is Alli Partain. I'm 33 years old. I am from Weiner, Arkansas, and it's just about 25 minutes from here. So you can only imagine, I know some of y'all probably are like, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. I want to go. You know, I was really close to home. And when I first came, I kind of thought I could do it for a few months, you know, and then go home. But the Lord really started working on me when I got here. What got me here was 2 weeks before I entered here, I was in a tough love class with my mom, Marla Grisham taught, and I had just lost my husband to a overdose. And 2 weeks before I came in here, like I said, we were in that class. And I had no intention of getting sober. But the Lord showed up that night, and we got on the phone with Suzanne. And I ended up coming. I had to go home and detox, and I detoxed at Mom's. And that was one of the worst things ever. And I ended up, I came here, and like I said, I wasn't going to be here long. There were many times that I was just ready to walk. And when I first got here, we went on a trip.
Where did we go? Tulsa?
And there was a girl in here that she's like, hey, we can get there, we can take off walking. Like, and I'm thinking the whole way there in the van with all these girls, I'm like, what am I doing with all these girls? Like, I didn't really get along with females, and I thought about it, but I didn't do it. And I'm thankful that I didn't do it. So, everything started when I was 14 years old. I got into the partying scene, hanging around with the wrong crowd, and I got introduced to methamphetamine. I became pregnant with twins at age 14, and I was scared and confused, and I really didn't understand, what was going on. But I ended up having to have a DNC because both of them were not formed, And so that happened. I then got sent to a program in Hallsville, Texas called Heartlight Ministries right after I had that surgery. And Mom and Dad had my bags in the car and told me I was just gone for a little bit, let alone it was a year-long program. And after I got there, I started doing the dumbest stuff there just to try to get kicked out so they would send me home. And I was snorting my sleeping pills, I was cutting myself. I even tried to light a dang house on fire because the girls talked me into it. And the punishment was going out in a horse pasture in an orange jumpsuit. And I had to do. So, I ended up, they allowed you to go to public school down there, like you had to level up and you got to go to school. Well, I come home with a cell phone and I was Daddy's little girl. So I got in the closet and I called my dad and I was like, hey Dad, like they're treating me bad. You gotta come get me. Well, he did. And I got back home and the cycle just started over. That lasted until I was 16, and I transferred from Wiener to Harrisburg. I skipped class all the time. I was throwing parties when my mom and dad weren't home. And that's when I soon met my first husband, Aaron, which is my kid's father. I have 2 kids. They're 15 and they're 14. I always wanted a family of my own. And Aaron had made me happy. My dad had allowed me to get emancipated where I could drop out of school, get my GED and my driver's license, and my mother was completely against it. I started raising 2 boys that their mother was not in their life due to drugs. She was in and out of prison, and they were 3 and 7 at the time. Aaron and I were together several months before I became pregnant with my son. My dad believed that I needed to be married to the man that I was fixing to have a child with, but Mom wasn't for it at all. I remember that my parents arguing in the courthouse. They literally were in an argument. They were separated and getting divorced at the time, and they were arguing big time. Well, I got married to Aaron on October the 16th. I gave birth to my son. And soon after I got home, I started using meth again. And y'all know how it is. It's horrible. That led me to walking out on my husband and my newborn son. And Aaron had worked for my dad on the farm. And I grew up farmer's daughter, all that stuff. I had everything. And I tried to make a phone call one morning, and they had let me know that my dad had he fell off of a tractor and he was being taken by ambulance to St. Bernard's. and he had been diagnosed with a brain tumor. We ended up finding out that he had about 2 weeks left to live. And at this time, I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter. I continued to use drugs. And on July 8th, my dad, he passed away. And I told him right before he passed away, I was like, you know, Dad, I know he couldn't talk or any of that, and he would touch. And I told him that I was going to name my daughter after him, and she's named after my dad, me, and my mother. And now looking back, I'm not angry with the Lord like I was. I have learned to, now that I am sober, I'm having to deal with all of it. And I still to this day have to deal with it. And sometimes the enemy wants to creep up, but I tell him to get under my feet, because I will never, ever go back to the life that I was living.
Amen.
And then October 5th of 2009, I gave birth to my little girl, Tony. Like I told y'all, I had done drugs the whole pregnancy, but she was healthy, and doctors try to say that she wouldn't really be healthy, that she would have a lot of problems, but I'm here to tell you that God is good, because she doesn't have any problems. I mean, she's beautiful and smart. She's a straight A student, and she's amazing. I ended up, after my dad passed away, you know, I ended up getting quite a bit of money. I got $500,000. It was gone in a year. And I blew it on drugs and anything you could think of. You know, I had all these friends, but they really weren't my friends. They were just acquaintances that were looking to make money, you know, for their next high and whatever they were doing with it. I ended up kicking the kid's dad out of a house that I had just bought on the lake that actually my parents had built. And I ended up getting with a man named Kerry. And he lived the lifestyle that I did. And looking back now, abandoning my normal lifestyle that I had with Aaron and my children for the lifestyle that I wanted to live, it makes me cringe, to be honest, because I had it all and then I gave it up for nothing. And that's where it got pretty rocky. I wasn't a mom. I hardly ever seen the kids, because getting high at the time is what I loved. And to be honest, I hardly ever checked on them unless I was high. At the time, all I cared about was money and drugs. In Matthew 6:24, it says, "No one can serve two masters. You will either hate one and love the other, and will be devoted to one and despite the other, and you cannot serve both God and money." This cycle continued for a couple of years, and I ended up divorcing Aaron. In 2013, even though we were split up prior to this, I signed over my 5-bedroom home to him, because I knew at the time that he would raise the 4 kids in a stable environment that I couldn't give them. I ended up marrying Carrie in May. That's when the drug use led to me being mentally, physically, and emotionally abused. I
quick how to stand up and defend myself to a grown man. I became a very violent person. I would always leave after the fights would happen, and I would run back. Every time I would go back into the same situation I ran away from. At the time, I thought this is what I deserved. I ended up becoming obsessed with the lifestyle from 2013 to 2015. And I thought that I was hiding my IVs from Carrie and my family, but they knew. Carrie ended up always getting physical in front of my kids. When I had my kids at this time, you know, their dad would let them come over for a little bit and they'd have to go right back. So maybe it was maybe an hour I got to see my kids. And my family watched me be abused. And my mom witnessed it one day. And looking back, I wish now that I would have listened to my family, because I feel like I would have had a lot less heartache. But God had His hands on me through every storm that I went through. I remember back then that I was trading my kids' tablets. I traded my sister's laptop. Anything I could get my hands on, I traded for my next fix. But I ended up losing everything that I ever had. I had to hit rock bottom. And my family had to let me go. I remember calling my mom crying, because there were times that I would be hungry, needing money, needing food. But she said no, and I'm glad that she did. And you know, Satan wants to keep us bound in secrecy, where he can put us down with guilt, shame, and misery. Throughout my addiction, I started having headaches, and I ended up going to the doctor. My dad he passed away in 2009, and a little after that, I started having problems, and I ended up having a brain tumor. And I went and I had surgery, and you know, they give medicine after you have surgery, so that led to another addiction. And when I got home from the hospital, I was taking medication, and I was still doing meth. In 2015, me and my husband at the time, Carrie, we had gotten into a really bad fight, and the law got called, and we both were facing some really serious charges. And he was facing terroristic threatening charges and felonies, and I was facing a couple felonies. He ended up doing 55 days, and I did 1. I moved back in with the kid's dad and his girlfriend at the time. Her name is Misty, and she took care of my kids, you know, the whole 12 years that I was in addiction on and off. And living out there, I started dealing meth out of the home that my kids were living in. And I tell myself I couldn't have been any lower of a mom. I promised my kids when Carrie had got out that I wouldn't go back. And I remember the kid's dad sitting in the floor with my son, and he was fixing one of our son's toys. And Aaron had told me, Alli, you can't go back. One of y'all will end up hurting each other. And Carrie ended up making bond. And he showed up at Aaron's house, and I was weak when it came to him, and I ended up going back. And I was coming down one night, and I was drunk, and I started acting out, and Aaron called the law. I was asked to leave, not wanting his or Missy's help that they were trying to give me. I ended up back at Carrie's. Carrie and me still had a restraining order at the time, but we didn't care. It never stopped us before. We soon started selling again. And on March the 16th of 2016, Tony Beth came to spend the night with me and Carrie. And me and Carrie, like always, got into a fight. So her dad came to pick her up. But on March the 17th, I woke up early that morning to find that he was barely breathing. I yelled for his mom and I started doing CPR until the ambulance arrived. And when I got to the hospital, they had told me I could go in and see him, but he was gone. He had tubes all in him, and I didn't want to go see all that. And first thing I ran to was leaving and getting high. I remember looking back now. I say he's my saving grace. I remember at the time I would curse God and tell him that he wasn't a good God because he had took my dad, my husband at the time. Somebody ended up showing up at the kid's dad's house and ended up leaving. I ended up wanting to take my own life. And how, I don't know, but I ended up being found in a field. And I called my mom. And I wanted her to come and pick me up. I was in the middle of nowhere. I was messed up. And she knew it. And when we got back to her house, my stepdad told me, I remember he was standing in the bedroom and he was fixing the ceiling fan, of all things. And he looked at me and he told me that if I didn't get help, that I would not be allowed back at my mom's. That's when we ended up going to this class that Marla had. And that's when the Holy Spirit, like I knew I had to get help. And that's when we talked to Suzanne, and like I told you earlier, I had to detox and all that. And really now, I don't even remember all that was talked about, to be honest. I just know I talked to her on the phone. So, let's see where I'm at here. But like I said, I ended up detoxing at mom's, and the withdrawal was, I mean, a lot of y'all know it was horrible. During that, I looked at mom and I said some things that I should have never said, because now my mom is my rock. And I entered John 3:17 on April the 3rd of 2016. On April the 5th, I was baptized by Poppy. And I graduated here. And I didn't go back to my hometown for 5 years. And I really encourage all of y'all, do not go back where you came from. You gotta change your people, your places, and your things. But what's crazy is when I graduated, we ended up taking the kids to Legoland. And we're in this motel. And I'm like, this is just, it wasn't no big fancy motel, you know. And I was like, Mom, something's not right. So I go in to use the restroom, and I'm trying to get the toilet paper roll was empty. And I remember taking it apart to put a new roll on, and a sack of weed fell out and hit the ground. Right when I get out of here. I mean, it wasn't a day. And like Suzanne says, Satan's in the parking lot doing push-ups when you leave here. So then I walk into where the sink was, and there was a mirror, and I noticed something was wrong with the mirror. And you know how we are, but we always find every little thing that's wrong in any situation, or anywhere we are. And I pulled that mirror, I climbed up on the counter, and my mom was like, what are you doing? And I was like, something's wrong. And I pulled, and meth fell down. So I run in there, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, Mom, you've got to come in here. You've got to get this. You've got to flush it. You've got to do something. Because, like, it was 24 hours. Well, we had a good time despite Satan trying to derail me. But I mostly want to tell all you girls today, I know some of y'all have kids. Who all has kids? Okay. Some of y'all have family probably watching them. Some of them are probably in the system, in foster care. Don't leave.
Amen.
Stay here. Because I promise it's so worth it. I'm going to let my mom talk for just a second, because I'm going to let her talk, and then I'm going to tell what God did when I got out of 317. She don't really like talking in front of people, but I just wanted her to talk, because I feel like y'all need to hear what it's like from a parent.
Amen.
To know what we put our parents through. And that they had to let us go, but they never gave up.
Like she said, we went to this tough love class. And that class consisted of me and about 10 other women, and we all had children that were drug addicts. And we met in a church, and just like we do every other day of our life, we prayed and prayed and prayed for our kids. But we also learned and talked about enabling them is the worst thing that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she would call me hi and ask for money, I knew that money wasn't going to go for food, because she wasn't eating anyway. That money was going straight for drugs. So I would go to the grocery store and buy her food. Well, that wasn't good enough. That made her mad. I would take her food, and that didn't satisfy her, because she wasn't wanting food. She was wanting money for drugs. But that tough love class taught me a lot as a parent. And as a parent, having an addict, I think, is probably the worst kind of hell you can go through here on earth. I mean, it destroys everything. But I didn't ever give up on her. I went to that class and I learned I just got to let her fall. And when she hits rock bottom, that she's either going to sink or swim at that point. And when Carrie died, she said he was her saving grace. In a way he was, because if he wouldn't have died, she would have never, I don't think, got clean. But once he died, that was it for her. When we went to that class that night and they called Suzanne, I had my doubts. Of course, I didn't think that she would stay 2 days. And she got here, and thankfully the Lord took a hold of her, and they guided her. I don't know what I'd have done without this place. And, you know, she, I'm so proud of her because she's never, I know that she probably has had moments since she's been out that she, you know, like in weak moments, we all have weak moments whether we're a drug addict or not. We all have weak moments when Satan tries to tell us to do something wrong, or to, you know, have bad thoughts. But the only thing I can tell y'all is to stay in this place, and God will help you, and He will heal you, and He will give you your life back with your parents and with your children. You just got to stay here and let Him work in your life.
Amen.
So you can see that's before. I thought I looked good too. Thought I was hiding it real well. Funny thing, this picture right here, I was in a lingerie top. Yeah.
We can go to the next one.
It's 8 years clean. You know, after the ministry, like I said, I stayed away from my hometown, and I ended up getting back with the kid's dad, and it just, we knew it wasn't going to work. I feel like I wanted to do it more for the kids, but then I did it because I wanted to. That's what I'd known. You know, when we got together, I was 16 and I'm 33 now. So I look back, and even though it was half of my life, we now are co-parents and we are friends. I have never had more of a great co-parenting relationship than I do now with him. Well, he started struggling. And he ended up getting with a girl that encouraged that habit, and he signed over our kids to me. Full rights, full custody, visitation, everything. So the past 8 years I've had Gustin and Tony, but their dad is sober now, and he's Steven. He's actually met somebody really great. Her name is Mary, and she just so happens to be one of my best friends now. Weird as that sounds, she was the best thing that ever happened to their dad. She's pushed him, she's been there, she's been hell on wheels with dealers showing up and her making them leave. But I just encourage all of y'all to not look like majority of y'all have kids. Stay here. I know there's a lot of women, and sometimes it's hard because some hormones are running rampant and they're cranky and crabby, and you got your happy ones over here that like to hug and sing and dance, and it's all right. Y'all encourage each other. Y'all be here for each other. So I ended up meeting my husband now. And he honestly, I wholeheartedly believe that he was God sent. Me and the kids have never had to want. We have a safe and stable home. They have a very good environment. You know, they go and they see their dad, but they don't stay the night with their dad. And we've tried and tried and tried, but my son says that mom's his home. So when y'all get out of here, y'all can all do it.
y'all can have this. I have a godly man, a man that puts everything before himself. And he does for all of us before himself. And he is the leader. Yes, we do have fights. But even though I'm 8 years clean, don't mean I don't still sometimes think like I did when I was an addict, because now I'm a recovering addict. But I have to just push through. There's times, y'all, I still hide stuff, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I've got to hide this so nobody gets it." And it's like jail pens and stuff, and he's like, "Why?" And I'm trying to break that habit, even though it's been 8 years. But in all honesty, y'all have to stay here, and every tool that you learn in here, you have to apply it out there, because out there, it's evil. You're safe here. Just like the doors say, you're entering a safe place. Y'all are safe. Nothing's going to stop out there. It's going to be there when y'all get out of here. But I'm going to tell you, Satan's going to come really hard. I'm not up here to tell y'all it's going to be easy, because it's not. It's hard. Every day is a challenge. I ended up getting to do jail ministry with my mom at McPherson. How many years ago was that? And it just so happens I ended up getting a phone call to go and work in medical at the prison over here in McPherson. A recovering drug addict working in the prison. But to me, it ended up being so much more, because I got to minister to the girls in prison. There's some of them that I knew. There's some of them I was in here with. But I couldn't have a personal relationship with them. I did have to let them know when I did know somebody, but that was hard. You know, they were so full of light in here. I thought that they would make it. And then I see them over there. And I actually had a family member that reached out the other day. My daughter was running track. Were you in Pocahontas? In Pocahontas, and I had ex-husband of one of the girls that were in here. She's in prison right now. And he's like, "Do you have a daughter over here? Because she looks just like you, this girl that I'm seeing." And I'm like, "I do." And it was her, and he's sending me pictures, and he told me that he often thinks back when he sees me post something on Facebook to the time that me and his wife were in here together. And he's like, "You know, you made it. You made it and she didn't." He said, and I didn't understand that. But he said he's learning to understand that sometimes people don't, and that Satan does really get in the way. But like I said, I encourage all of you guys to just enjoy your time here for a year. You know, I always tell people when I hear the word rehab, you know, and I've had people even say to me, "You know, you went to rehab? Like, rehab's for quitters." You know, it is. I quit 8 years ago. But y'all are going to make it. You're going to be fine. You're going to have bumps along the way when you get out. Nobody's perfect. You know, and what's crazy is I'll just be driving down the road someday, and I'm like, you know, I see people that in my hometown, and I just, like, I used to be like that. But my biggest thing now is I minister. I got my CNA license, and I work at a nursing home in Harrisburg that I've been over there for 6 years. And that's my ministry, taking care of dementia and Alzheimer's residents. Because even though my grandparents are not here tonight, my grandpa has dementia, and it's gotten worse. But I feel feel like God put me there to learn, at the nursing home, to learn and go through the schooling and everything that I did, because one day I'm going to get to be there for my grandpa. We were eating here one year, it was Thanksgiving, and Suzanne had said, you know, all this time our families served us, now it's time for us to serve them. And that stuck with me. And now I know that I'm going to get to give back to my grandparents, to my mom, to my stepdad, to my children. And when y'all get out, like I said, Satan's going to come at you, whether it's alcohol, pills, or if you hurt yourself and end up having to go to the hospital or something. I've always told him, you know, I can't take opiates. I just can't. I'm having a surgery next week. Carpal tunnel releases on my hands, and I'll take Tylenol before I take anything and get addicted. But I say everything that I said to say. I'm just very grateful for John 3:17, because if I would have not ended up here, I would not be where I'm at today. And when y'all get out, you're going to be able to minister to others. And it's one of the best feelings ever. But I can tell y'all, during the whole blackout period, that's when I was really angry, because I didn't get to make a phone call, I didn't get to see my kids. But I remember we were back in class, back there with Poppy, when my 30 days was up. And class was over, and the door opened, and I hear kids screaming, "Mommy." And it was my daughter and my son. And I knew in that moment that I had to stay here. I had to learn to let the Lord work in my life, and to let me know that it was going to be okay. Because like I said, I did not like women. And there were women in here that had husbands in 316. And in my mind, it wasn't fair, because my husband that passed away wasn't here, and we couldn't get sober together. But God worked on my heart, and I learned to love every one of them that were in here. And still love them all, even though some of them have struggles. I'm not going to love them any less. But I just want them to know, and I'm sure Bridget, some of y'all are watching, that I do pray for all of y'all. And now, seeing all y'all's faces, I'm going to be praying for you girls too. But please, stay in here, stay of course, and when you get out, don't go back where you came from. Because I'm telling you, 99% of the time, you're not going to make it. And I'm so thankful that I got to talk to you guys tonight.
Amen.